Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our next featured session today. Before we get started, I want to quickly announce if you would like captioning, please select the CC button with the arrow and select Show Subtitles. I hope day two of the conference is off to a great start. There were some great sessions presented this morning, and I hope you felt inspired and learned something new. Thank you to our presenters and to those who provided tech support. As the conference planning committee developed the agenda, we recognized how valuable it would be to invite high school students to share how they have navigated some of the most pressing issues we have faced this year. I'm so glad these four high school students from four local high schools decided to spend time with us today to reflect on their experiences. Students, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to learning from you. I also want to thank Dr. Chris Mojak for coordinating and moderating this session. I will now turn this session over to you.
Good morning, and thank you, Dr. Higgins, for organizing this important event. As Dr. Higgins said, my name is Chris Mojak, and I use he, him pronouns. I am a faculty member in the Department of Kinesiology, and I will serve as the moderator for our session today. Before we begin, I would like to take just a moment of silence to honor those lives that were lost both last week in Georgia and yesterday in Colorado. As we know, humans are complex, and we have the capacity to experience joy and sorrow in consecutive moments. And so today, as Dr. Higgins said, we have the pleasure of being joined by four high school students from CCSD on a conversation about some of the aspects of that complexity. Today's interaction is the kind of joy we need to continue our constant work of being whole and present. So I literally read articles on how to be an effective moderator. It told me to shut up and let my panelists do the talking. So I'm going to get out of the way and let my panelists introduce themselves. So we will start in our question order with Nick today.
My name is Nick Bell. My pronouns are he, his. I'm a 12th grader at City Shores High School, and I want to be here today. I feel like it will help me more with public speaking. Especially since I want to be a professor one day, it'll definitely help me speaking in front of a lot of people.
We'll just roll along next to Wendy.
Hello, I'm Wendy. My name is Wendy, and I'm a 12th grader. And the reason why I'm here today is because it gives me an opportunity to be a little bit more open, just because I'm not used to it, but it just gives me another opportunity to try something new.
Thank you, Wendy.
Hi, my name is Madison Bannister. My home high school is Clark Central, but I go to ACCA mostly, and I do enroll at Athens Technical College. And I wanted to be here to share my experience and also hear about everybody else's experience, like the other students, and just to see how they've experienced this pandemic and this year.
Thank you, Madison.
Good morning. My name is McKenna Mincy. I am a 10th grader at Clark Central High School, and I'm here this morning because I believe that this would be a good fit for me, and other people around me also saw that. And I'm really here to just take in the opportunity and enjoy it.
Well, we are excited to have you all here. To our attendees, thank you for joining. We do want to involve you a little bit in today's conversation, but we're going to save that for the last 10 minutes where we will have questions from the audience. So please feel free to enter your questions into the Q&A feature on Zoom as they come to you throughout the session, and then we'll get to as many as we can at the end of our conversation. But we are going to start with a couple planned discussion items. And so, Nick, this first question goes to you. When you think about your learning experience during the pandemic, what has been the most challenging part for you? And what did you learn about yourself because of it?
So seeing that this year is my senior year and I just went into my senior year and really, I don't know, it's really like I lost a lot of opportunity that I could have had this year, like homecoming and, just enjoying your last year of high school. But I will say that being at home and doing online school is just like, it's easy to get distracted by your actual personal life because you're not actually in school. So I spend a lot of time worried more about work and I just bought a new car and get more distracted by that rather than focusing on schoolwork. It's just I feel like I don't feel like it's a priority anymore, even though I should because of doing Zoom and the pandemic and all that. But what I have learned since the pandemic, I did come out as transgender, which I feel like I wouldn't have done if it weren't for the pandemic because of just self-confidence and being in school. And the transition would have been harder if I were in school because it's hard now with the pronouns and people having to switch over from she to he and people still not understanding that. And it's hard now, but it would have been more harder if I were in school. And I am appreciative of having the time to focus on myself and find myself and really just become more comfortable because I had that time alone. So I say I learned to be more independent and more confident with myself, having this time to myself. And yeah.
We appreciate you sharing that.
I also want to add to the question. I've learned, the most challenging part for me is the online aspect. For me, I'm not an online learner, and I figured that out way before the pandemic with my dual enrollment classes. So it was kind of hard to be forced to go online instead of choosing to be online. And that was something that I definitely had to work with and get more help with and more support from my teachers and my mentors. But it was really challenging. And what I've learned about myself is that I need to focus. Well, I feel like I need to focus more on my mental health and just being healthy in general with my mental and all that stuff. Yeah.
I definitely agree with what everyone has said so far. Just to add on to that, I don't think that a lot of people realize how difficult this transition was for students because in comparison to most Clark County schools, I remember being in the hallway and there was nothing but noise. There was always something happening. There was always someone doing something. And there was always a lot. Sometimes I felt like, it was overwhelming. And once we got sent home, and after those 2 weeks, they told us that we weren't coming back, it was such a drop off because you really had to sit with yourself in your household, in your room, just by yourself. And there were so many fewer distractions than there usually would be. And so I think that a lot of students ended up feeling like so disoriented because that was a huge transition. And I don't think people give us enough credit for dealing with that the way that we have.
I just want to add on. So for the pandemic and stuff, I would say just because I already knew how it was, because like I went through it because I had COVID and everything. It was pretty difficult to deal with just because of when you're just like stuck in one room, because I had to be stuck in one room just by myself. And it's like, it kind of did mess up my mental health just being stuck in one place because I'm used to just being outside or doing things. And it was pretty hard to deal with just every single day for like a month or so in one place and not being able to do like anything. And I had to focus on my mental health and like still be, make it a positive thing.
Can I add something to also what back to Wendy? Like I feel like it was also very scary for all of us. Like I remember I was so scared to step out of the house. Like I thought like the first day I go outside and even if I'm wearing a mask, I'm gonna get COVID. And like it's really hard to stay away from my grandparents. We were really close. I visit them all the time and I haven't seen them like once ever since the pandemic started. So it's really hard being away from family members and just being stuck in your room. Like literally all I do is go to work and come home and that's it.
I wanted to add something on. Since we're talking about like staying at home and being isolated, I feel like for a lot of us, it's changed our relationship with a lot of our good friends. I know for me, I know when the pandemic first started, bro, I was so like, I wouldn't say depressed, but like I was so like down. I'm like, do people still love me? Like, but it's really like everyone's having to be alone, and it's really, I guess, just trying to focus on ourselves and being forced to do that in a sense. We feel like we don't have those same bonds because of school and stuff too. But yeah, just wanted to add that on.
Nick, well, I'll say we still love you here, so we're glad to have you with us, and I appreciate all of you sharing kind of two different sides of this mental health component. So the pros and cons of being forced to sit with yourself. Um, I think that's an important part, and you know, as you pointed out, the student voice, the student perspective on this at times felt like it was the second thing that was considered, right? While we were trying to hustle and organize. So we appreciate you coming today and sharing some of that. And as you pointed out, the pandemic did require us to take a look at some things closely. So this next question goes to you, Wendy. The pandemic forced many people to acknowledge inequities that have long been present in our systems: education, criminal justice, healthcare, et cetera. How do you define or describe racism, injustice, and inequity? And how do you experience it?
Well, honestly, racism, I really pretty much define it as is like you don't give enough respect to a group of people just because of the skin color or the religion they do or anything like that. You just think of them as a different person and you don't give them enough respect or you think they less than you or anything like that. And then injustice, I feel like injustice it can be with anything, a person, um, it could just happen anywhere basically. And the way I would probably experience it, or I have probably experienced it, was when growing up. I honestly like, I wouldn't really know a lot about it growing up, but just growing up, just because I was Mexican and like I would always kind of move from school, and I kind of felt like the new kid at some point, and it just felt like I know I had friends and everything, but there was a few times where people would just be like, "Oh, like you're Mexican or you come from Mexico," so it's like they expected the same thing, like, "Oh, just because other families, um, the way they get here is like they jump over the wall supposedly," and it's just like they'll be like, "Oh, you came here and you jumped over the wall," and to me it was like not every Mexican does that. Not, yes, families do that to come bring their kids and try to let them have a better life than what they did, but just because I'm Mexican or anything like that doesn't mean I did the same thing or anything. And honestly, growing up, I didn't really notice it until I kind of learned more about it. And it was just like, yeah, friends can make jokes about it. I don't really take it to the heart because, like, sometimes I realized it was like, oh, they're joking, but sometimes it was like some people do take it to the heart, and you can never know if another person is listening and like they could probably feel like they just like discomfort or anything like that just because they're joking around, like saying, oh, like, did you really mean what you said or anything like that.
Can I piggyback off of this? Cool. Okay. But just going back to the definitions, I feel like it is really important for us to make distinctions between racism, injustice, and inequality because they affect people like differently. Like racism overall is a system. Injustice is a byproduct of said system. And inequality is like stuff that we experience day to day and stuff like that. And like I agree with a lot of what Wendy said. It actually brought back some memories that are not exactly painful but uncomfortable from when I was a little bit younger, not too much, but people would constantly make these jokes that looking back on it, they were completely inappropriate. And I had a right to be as mad as I was. But when there are a lot of people around you who always want you to take everything as a joke, sometimes you end up seeming crazy. And so a lot of the day-to-day inequality that students face comes from people who we are close to, I think, and also the fact that those people do not really respect boundaries that you set. And like there's kind of a pressure to not push those boundaries as to not seem like you're trying too hard or that you're too oversensitive.
I'd say with me experiencing injustice and inequality, um, especially being in the LGBTQ community, it's a lot different than what anyone else would experience. Even before coming out as transgender, I got a lot of backlash, especially from Black men for some reason. Um, I guess them feeling like because I was a masculine woman when I was one, um, them always telling me, "Oh, you want to try so hard to be a man and stuff like that." But even when I was, um, even though I am transgender now, I know a lot of masculine women don't feel that way. It's not, you know, we that it's an option to become a man if you want, if you really wanted to. And a lot of um masculine women, I feel like that's very disrespectful towards them because just because they just dress in men's clothing and carry themselves a certain way doesn't mean that they want to be someone else. And I feel like that's a big misconception. Um, and with racism and that situation, recently I went from working in a really, I went from working in Athens to working in Watkinsville and, Oconee County. And I know it's a different scene in Oconee County. And coming in, I really feel it's like sometimes I'm the only Black cook in the kitchen or, you know, and I see a lot of stuff around me, but since I'm like the only Black person in that environment, I feel like I can't speak up sometimes because I won't be taken seriously, or um, I don't know. I just feel like don't really have the. I don't know how to explain it. Like I want to speak up, and I know that I should, but I don't sometimes. And it's like this girl, she's a Hispanic girl, and she says the N word, and it's just like that's not okay. And a lot of Hispanics think that it's so okay, just because they're not white. it's still not fun. To me, I really will never understand that. And I have said something, and she's just like, whatever. It's just off her shoulders. And I feel like in those situations, no matter what we say to people who are racist or homophobic or whatever the case may be, we really can't change that in their hearts a lot of times, no matter how hard we try. And I accept that, and I just go on about my life.
I just want to piggyback off of what McKenna said earlier, with how it's in our school system. Like I feel like I've gone through racism and equality throughout my whole educational career. Like from being in a Montessori school when I was little into going into AP classes and stuff when I was in high school and the last year of middle school. Like I remember being so scared to be in AP classes, and because I was like one of the only Black people or African American people or or Mexican or Hispanic person in that class, I just felt so uncomfortable. Like the only word I could describe it is uncomfortable. Like, and then sometimes people wouldn't work with you, or sometimes people would expect less of you because you're a person of color. And so I always felt like I constantly had to prove myself to my class, to my teacher, that I'm smart enough, that I'm just as smart as the other kids in the class because they're of a different race. Or I have to talk a certain way in certain environments, like code switching. I have to talk this way for you to take me seriously. And then I talk another way when I'm at home or when I'm with my friends. Like every time I go to work, it doesn't matter where I'm working at or whatever, I put on a certain persona, I guess you could say, because I need to be professional and I need people to take me seriously because I'm an African American woman. And if I'm not that, then I feel like they wouldn't take me as seriously, or they wouldn't take me as seriously as a male, a white male, anything. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate the stories again. We heard about jokes, conversation, language that's used, how it creates these environments for you. And I think that builds us well into this next question, that is to you, Madison. There are folks who are part of creating these environments. And so the question is, what do you need or want from partners in the community, teachers, mentors, politicians, supervisors, et cetera, to support you as you navigate these systems?
So I guess I'll start with racism, since we just ended with that question with concerning the system and teachers and mentors and politicians. I just feel like they should call it out when it happens. And like McKenna said, it might be uncomfortable, or like Nick said, like you might not want to say anything, but I feel like these people are adults and they should be able to call out things that are wrong and uncomfortable or might be uncomfortable for students in that situation, and to make it better. And I just feel like they should encourage people of color, Hispanics, anybody to, I guess, get in these AP classes, get into rigor courses, and just situations that we're not always put in, and that the lower minority is not often put in, so that we can feel more comfortable and there's just more of us in that environment. And for the pandemic, I just feel like this might not be for all cases, but teachers, I feel like they're kind of giving us a busy work instead of like work that we need. And I feel like sometimes they give us 5 worksheets, for example, and all of them have like the same material on it. You can easily squish that into 1 or 2, and I can get done my work in like an hour instead of working 3 days on it. It's easier, and it's like, it helps my motivation, me personally. Like if I see 5 worksheets and they're all the same and I'm on Zoom and I'm at home, I'm not going actually into class, my motivation is like, bro, I don't want to do this. Like I'm not going to get on Zoom. But if it's 2 worksheets and it's only going to take me an hour and you're not giving me busy work, then I feel like, okay, I got this. I'm going to handle it in an hour and I'll be done and I'll be more motivated. And mentors, I guess just be more supportive of us in this time and be, what's the word, not considerate, but just give us more credit, or give us more credit that we're due. Like, this is a very hard time for us, and it's a lot of transitioning for us to do. So I just feel like whatever we choose, just be supportive of that. Like me personally, I know before the pandemic, I was like, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna get like a PhD, I'm gonna like, but then like after this year, man, I'm gonna take a semester off. Like I can't do it mentally. And I feel like if I try to push myself, then I'm only gonna fail. So I want to set myself up for success. So I'm gonna take a semester off before college. And politicians, my facts might not be right, but I feel like earlier this year they like sent elementary school kids and middle school kids back to school, and then like they like sent them back home because the COVID rates were going higher or something. If that's not correct, please correct me. But if it was, I just feel like it either needs to be a yes or a no. We can go back to school or not go back to school, because the back and forth is kind of confusing, I think, a lot of students, and it's very conflicting. And it's like, oh my God, what do I decide? Like, and it's like for me, high school students, we had a chance to go back to school in person, March 15th, I believe, and I chose not to. And it was like, I like the decision. I like that students can individually decide and talk to their parents if they want to go back to school or if they're concerned about health. But I just feel like it'll be better if somebody higher up would just be like yes or no, because it's an internal battle that I go back and forth on a daily. Like, I want to go outside. I want to see people, my mental health. Like, I need to be outside, but at the same time, I'm really concerned about people's health and my grandparents' health and my mom's health. So it's very conflicting, and I wish somebody would just make a decision and call it a day until like next semester or next school year or whatever.
Adding on to what she said about the back and forth, I feel the same exact way. Like, it's still changing like every other week. Like, is it gonna be 4 days a week, 5 days a week? Are we gonna go back? Are we not? But really, I feel like for high school, it's not even worth going back. At least in my school, it's like so dead. Like, no one's there. Like, so what's really the point? Like, it's like half a day, then you go home and get on the computer. Like, what is it really like? Is it really worth it? I just feel like they definitely just need to make a choice instead of changing stuff every week and confusing people. Like, they just changed the bell schedule, and I'm sitting here still trying to figure it out. Like, what time did the class start? And I'm not gonna lie, like sometimes, well, half of the time I don't even go in Zoom because it's just like the teacher's just like, all right, this is what we're gonna do today. You guys do it, and then she just turned her camera off. I'm like, all right, so I'm just gonna sit here in front of the computer. Just like, I feel like this whole thing is just so like demotivating. Like, I don't feel like doing anything.
This is kind of to piggyback off of just the particular part of teachers and politicians and kind of how those coincide when we talk about the school board. I've told you all this in my introduction, but I am a member of the Education Matters team, which is a radio show. We do interviews on Saturdays, they air. And we have had multiple people from the school district on our show. And oftentimes we will voice our concerns to them. And it seems that they didn't even know that that perspective was out there. It's just like every time we interview them, whether it be the same person or a new person, when we bring certain topics to them, specifically regarding our treatment during this pandemic or in school, it seems like there's a disconnect. There's something not happening between the students and the people who make those decisions. And there's something that's not getting through. I don't know if it is teachers, administration, I'm not sure, but somewhere in between, our concerns are literally not reaching these people for them to even be able to help us. And so from that aspect, I think that we need to establish better communication in between those two groups. Because while students are voicing all of these things that they need to change, that change is never getting to the people that it needs to get to for it to actually happen. And so students believe that, oh, our school district must not care about us. And it's not always the case. It's simply that there's a disconnect and we need to improve our communication. And I feel like our teachers need to help us with that as well.
I thought about something earlier before while I was reviewing the questions before this panel. And it was like we're a space where students can come together and talk about their struggles and their ideas and what they've been through during the pandemic. And I think that it's a great idea if somebody, maybe me, maybe whoever, but we can come up with a place where we can talk to boards of the school board and, just give them the perspective that they need. Like she said, there's obviously a disconnect. So we need to create a space and a community where we can come together some way, somehow. We need to talk about it.
Now, I'm not going to demand that you come up with a solution right now, but I want to pose this to the panel. What does this space look like? Where does it exist? How does it exist? How does this communication piece start to be repaired?
Personally, I think that this space would have to exist in the schools or where the students are, because granted, there are already spaces like this that do exist. School board meetings are open to all members of the Clark County School District. So it's not that we don't have the opportunities, it's that one, we don't get to hear about them. Our teachers aren't telling us we should go to the school board meetings, or we have a school board meeting this Thursday. If you have any concerns, you should go, or let me write down anything that you're concerned about, let me take that. There's no communication there, and that's not really posed as something that we're allowed to be at. If you know, it's usually because of a parent or a mentor. And so I see an efficient way to really get that information out is to have that place of meeting in the schools or wherever those students are, because as mentors and leaders in our community, I feel like, and this is not to take responsibility off of us as students, but as a servant of the student body, because that is what that job is intended to do. It is required that sometimes you go the extra mile to make sure that students who may not be able to get to these forums that you have set up that are usually dominated by parents and teachers, that those students are still able to get their point across. So I feel like I'm not trying to take responsibility off of students to do what they need to do, but I'm saying that at a certain point, I feel like people will have to go the extra mile in order to get that student interaction and that perspective in a way that will truly benefit students. And that's going to require meeting students where they are.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what she said. Like, I remember I didn't even know that we could attend the meetings, like the public, until like last year. And that was because I was at ACCA for like a catering or something. And I just happened to be there. And I was like, what's going on? So I feel like nobody tells students, nobody tells parents that there's no communication. We don't know about it. And I feel like what she said, if you come to us and you meet us, well, more than halfway or halfway, then we will be encouraged to take the extra step and maybe go to where you're having the meetings at. Like, we can go back and forth either way, but we'll be encouraged after you meet us at our space to go to your space.
I appreciate those perspectives. This idea of communication being key to every relationship, whether it's between students and teachers, district and teachers, districts and students and families. We know that it's key. And McKenna, I'm gonna bring this last part to you because I'm guessing communication is part of this community piece. But the last question that we have prepared is, How have you maintained or developed new community during this time? And where do you find joy?
During this time, I have developed and maintained community through opening myself up more to things that I used to think were trivial, I would say. Um, Growing up, I was definitely a little bit different. And even when I got older, even going back like 2 years ago, I didn't really text, FaceTime, was not active on social media. None of those things really appealed to me. And so being in the pandemic, I have learned the value and the plus side of those things other than just watching other people's videos. And really, I have had to really open myself up to things that normal teenagers do. And upon doing that, I have been able to not only make new friends, but I have grown closer to friends that I've already had, more so in this pandemic than I have seeing them in person every day. Just because I was able to be the one to text first, to answer that phone call, to have that discourse on social media has definitely opened me up. Also, when given the opportunity, I did try to participate in what I could. I am a cheerleader at Clark Central. This past fall, I did my first year of varsity cheer, and that was also a community for me. Just that whole thing is also one of the places that I found the most joy. I was able to be around people that I knew, meet new people, and that was also a source of community. On that same note, as I mentioned before, I'm a member of the Education Matters team, which is a radio show, and meeting with them is also a huge source of my joy and is one of the communities that I have maintained throughout this pandemic. Like I said, we do a show, we record every Monday, airs on Saturday, and it requires collaborative effort from everyone. And just all the things that I've mentioned above have helped me maintain and develop that community, and all of the things that I have said have kept me happy and brought me joy.
I guess I'll go next. I just want to piggyback off of what she said. I'm an introvert, and before the pandemic, I didn't go out. I didn't hang out with friends like that. I didn't really text. I didn't really do social media. But after, like, I appreciate outside so much. Like, me and my best friend just started going out every Monday to go exercise together. Like, I would never have done that before the pandemic. I'm not an outside person. I don't really do that. But now I go outside. Now I FaceTime. Now I text. I'm on Instagram. Like, I just feel like it opened my personality and my, I don't know, me up more to being more social. And I feel like I've taken it for granted, like before the pandemic, like being able to go outside without a mask, being able to go outside without being scared, being able to be close to people, be able to hug people, like being able to be comfortable. And I've developed a new community with my new job that I got. I've definitely gained more friends. But other than that, I really haven't. There's nowhere else that I really want to go because of the pandemic and stuff. So that's really where I maintain and develop my new community at. Like I don't do sports. I don't do any of that because once again, I'm kind of scared. But yeah.
So with me, I was in the marching band, the drumline at city shows before the pandemic, but when the pandemic came along, we couldn't really do it like we wanted to. They still did it, but I just chose not to because of time, and I feel like it wouldn't be the same. But I still have maintained my relationships with those people, and I went to one band event that they had, one game they had, and still played and had a good time. And I also joined this new community coming up called Friends Like Me, and it's a basically a trans community where trans people connect with other trans people, maybe younger trans people, and basically, I know for me being trans in Athens Clarke County is not very many of us, so just to have that community, especially within Instagram and things like that, finding people like you who can connect with you is definitely a pro. Um, I also started a YouTube channel this year. I started a series on my Instagram page where I just talk about world issues and personal issues. Um, Planning to bring people on and maybe do a live speaking about a topic, but it's definitely got me out my comfort zone too and made me want to do things that I probably wouldn't have done if it weren't for the pandemic.
And I'm just gonna piggyback off all of them. But I would say that just me being like a very anti-social person, I really don't like talking out or speaking up or anything like that. But during like now it's just like some things I have to do. And it's just like just to be heard and everything. And it just gave me like an opportunity to try to up and try to become more open with myself. It's kind of like a scary thing to do for me, but it's like step by step, I try to open up more and see if I can become, a better person within myself.
As an exercise scientist, I'll try not to jump on the movement parts of how much I want to focus on that, Joy. But I saw this idea of vulnerability and these new ways of interacting and engaging with communities. How have you figured out how to be okay being vulnerable through these new methods of communication?
Honestly, for me, my friends kind of had to push me into it. And that's not to say that it was any form of peer pressure, none of that. But if it would have just been left up to me, I definitely wouldn't have done it. They kind of had to push me into this whole technological world, show me how things worked. Sometimes I still don't know how certain things work, but I really think that me getting involved was just because my friends wouldn't let me stay out of it. They wanted to talk to me, they wanted to be around me, and they knew that the only way to do that in a time like this was to push me into that social world, and they did. It was a constant just push. They were always calling, always texting, and it was just that kind of allowed me to do that.
For me, it was kind of just seeing how many people cared, because I know that might sound like really bad, but it was just like, wow, like these many people are texting me, these many people, like she said, won't let me not text them, won't let me not call you, won't let me anything. And even teachers email me, how are you doing? Are you okay? Is your family well? Like, what are your next steps after high school? What are we doing? Do you need an internship? Like, what do you need? And I really appreciate how much they care.
I would say for me, it would be more towards my mom, basically. She's like my best friend. So it's like she kind of always pushed me into being okay and saying like it's okay sometimes not to be okay. But she would always like pull me up from like any spaces I was down or very depressed or anything like that. And other than that, like teachers also always telling me like I need to graduate just because I kind of let my grades down and like I'm so close to graduating and like they didn't want me to not graduate. So it's like they always kept pushing me into doing my classes and trying harder just so I can graduate. And now I am about to graduate.
All right. Well, I appreciate the insight here. We are going to shift and start taking some of the questions from our audience members. So let me pull this first one that I see here, which is, how has your relationship with your teachers changed?
I'll say that my first semester, I only had one teacher that I did not know before the pandemic. Um, and I would say forming a new teacher-student relationship is definitely different just because um, I don't know, I feel like that connection is a little bit different and it's a little bit weaker. Trying to gain that connection through the computer and with a lot of black screens and she can't see people and people not turning their cameras on, people not responding in class. Um, I feel like it's made it definitely harder, but I feel like I would one of the people who always like if no one said anything, I said something. I tried to gain the connection by emailing and reaching out to the teacher, asking for help sometimes. But I say in that way it's changed. And with teachers that I already knew, it's like I don't know. I feel like it's hard to communicate. I feel like we're all just black screens and we're all just doing busy work. It's not really interactive this year. And I feel like that's changed my way that I connected with my team.
I just feel like there are certain teachers that I have gained a stronger relationship with. Like I said, texting, emailing, how are you doing? How's your family? Just being supportive and being my mentors. But then there's also ones that I specifically saw in person. Like there's some teachers that I don't have classes with and they don't teach me anything, but I still visit them in the morning. I still go to their classrooms after school, and I can't really do that during the pandemic. So I haven't really talked to any of them or have had that relationship ever since the pandemic started. So that kind of weakened a little bit.
Just to piggyback off of what Nick was saying, it is really hard to develop those student-teacher relationships in a pandemic because I know that my first semester, I knew all of my teachers already. They all knew me, and I was comfortable enough with them to occasionally turn on my camera, talk more in class. But this semester, I have pretty much all new teachers. I don't know them. They have never seen me. And it's really hard to introduce myself to them. And also, last year was a super struggle for me, not just because of the pandemic, and because I had teachers that knew me. When I wasn't doing well in class, they would check on me. If I didn't come, they would call and they would just come in and check on me. And I was also able to be more vulnerable with them and communicate to them like, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. And I apologize for anything that is reflecting in class. And they were able to understand that. And they would always help me get my missing assignments in. And there were times where I just know that my grade should have been a C, but because those teachers went the extra mile to encourage me to do that work, I was able to maintain my GPA. And there was stuff like that. But having new teachers, they don't know me. Everything that I do in that class is fully on me. And the rigor of these classes in my second semester is higher. So that change in student-teacher relationship has definitely affected the way that I interact in classes, and it has made it harder for me to really be the student that I usually am.
And I would say the same thing as she said, because in my school, it's a really small school, but everybody knew everybody and everybody knew the teachers. So it wasn't as complicated. But now this year, it was just like almost everybody there, the principal, like everybody was new. So it was kind of hard for me to even like try to open up, because it's like they're new people. I don't know them. I've never met them. They never met me. So it's like kind of hard to open up to a person that you don't even know and you've never seen. So it was like, you gotta I had to try to open up to them at some point just to get the help that I needed for my classes. But it's still pretty hard to even do that.
I appreciate that. We've got another question here. What do you think teacher prep or training programs could or should include to address some of these concerns?
I think that these programs should definitely encourage teachers to be more interactive with students. This is kind of going back to something that was said earlier, but when a teacher is just kind of throwing work at you, not only is that relationship not there because it's online, but it doesn't give you a desire to form that relationship. Everything that happens in a classroom is based on a tone that the teacher sets. I know even with last semester, one of my teachers I had only met once, but her tone in the classroom really is what allowed me to open up as much as I did. And I think that even though we are online, I feel like teachers should still be able to carry that same in-person energy into a screen, which is difficult and a lot to ask, especially because teaching styles differ. I understand all of that, but it is really the teachers who are able to find the way to transition their in-person teaching style and really translate that onto a screen. Those are the teachers who have the interaction, who have the relationships with their students, who actually get to see their students despite them being on a black screen. So I think that teachers learning to translate that same energy onto an online class is really the most important thing.
Yeah, and teaching someone energy and tone and these kinds of things can certainly be a challenging process for teacher prep programs. Maybe one of the things that can be built into it, though, is related to this other questions, or to this question. Sometimes students don't want to go into the uncomfortable AP classes. How can teachers support students working through that discomfort, encourage that community that would increase the feeling of belonging?
I think that with AP classes, I don't really think that falls on the teachers actually, because a lot of the issues that happen in AP classes with students feeling that discomfort is usually due to the behavior of other students. And a lot of times teachers have no control over that. So in terms of community building, I don't think that that necessarily falls on the teacher, but in the aspects that do, if teachers see a student is not really being supported by their classmates, perhaps giving extra support to that student, I could see that as a way to support. But overall, I feel like to really build that community, it has to be a change from the students. And honestly, teachers do not have a lot of control over that. So that's just me.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of having trouble answering that question, because there's nothing that the teacher can really do. It's really on the students. And I even know someone in my grade currently, Karali Grantham, you might know him, but he started like a group to encourage students in 9th grade and all grades to be in AP classes and those rigorous courses. And it's specifically for minorities, but I'm sure like all students can join, but he started that group, and I feel like that's more of what we need. We need students to come together and encourage grades below them to be in those AP classes or those rigor courses.
Well, I've got one final question that I'm just going to ask to give like a one sentence answer to before we get ready to close this out. And it's based off a question that was presented here. What advice do you have for parents or families who want to support, encourage their kid to succeed, but to find that independence and space to grow? So just a one sentence piece of advice.
I feel like just to listen out to their kids, because I know like there's probably parents that like want to say, oh, like, because some people might be depressed or anything like that, but for them it's like you can't be depressed because of school. Like they don't understand it, so it's like more like just listen out to them and just try to support them and give them advice and just be positive on the positive side.
Learn your child's triggers, what makes them happy, what makes them sad, what is easy for them, what is hard for them, and then act accordingly.
I would say support them, and like McKenna said, know your triggers. Know when your child is going through a rough time. Know when it's too much. Know when you need to step in and you be like, no, you're not doing this class, or you need to do this class. Just know your child.
I say listen, be supportive, and be patient, because they will make a lot of decisions that you probably won't agree with. But you know, life is a learning experience. Probably let your kid learn those things on their own. I know I'm hard headed. When my mama tells me something, I'm like, I want to learn on my own. Like I'm not gonna listen. So just be patient with them.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you for your time today. We're going to pull Dr. Marion Higgins back in to close us out.
Wow, this was just such a great panel. Thank you all. There were a couple of words that came to mind as I listened to you all, and I took some notes because you all shared a lot with us. And so, I want to thank you for being insightful and thoughtful, and most of all, for just sharing your brilliance with us this afternoon. There were a lot of great takeaways for us as community members, as parents, as educators. And so I want to thank you for giving us something to consider, for helping us think about ways that we can support you as youth in our community, and thinking about, too, future directions for education. And so I think that is very helpful for us. As you all have pointed out, we're making decisions, but yet there's this disconnect. So this is the communication that we need to have and continue to have. And I'm so thankful that we've provided this space today for you all to join us. So thank you so much. All right, so now we will move into, and thank you too, Dr. Mojak, for moderating this session as well. Again, it was just wonderful. So now we'll move into our next session. We'll start our next concurrent session at 1 o'clock. And so hopefully you all have decided the sessions you will be attending, and we look forward to you joining us at that time. And then for you all coming back tomorrow for our closing panel that will take place at 10 a.m. So look forward to seeing you later today and on tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.